Let's go. Drive time Wednesday afternoon, 11 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock, about 88 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Another hot day. We've got a hot weekend ahead. But happy Wednesday to you. You are halfway through that work week. You are one day closer to the weekend. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson producing the program today. We got a good guest list to talk mostly college football as Utah football continues their preparations for game day. Coming up in just 2 weeks from tomorrow, Idaho in town for a 7 o'clock Mountain Time kick. Our pregame coverage with Porter Larson taking care of you in that direction. We'll begin at 3 o'clock that day. 4 hours of pregame coverage, 2 with Porter, and then Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, will take over from there and call the game right here on your home of the Utes, the only home of the Utes you've had for 75 years now. And the Morgan Scalley era is set to begin. TV coverage for the first Utah football game will be ESPNU. Keep that in mind if you're going to be at home on your couch hanging out. Never a bad idea to turn the TV down and turn the radio up so you can hear Bill call the game. And you can watch the action if you can't make it to Rice-Eccles Stadium. 2 days after that battle, well, hopefully it's not a battle. It is a game. Utah is a healthy 34.5-point favorite. But 2 days after Utah begins their foray into Big 12 play, it's BYU's turn against Utah Tech. 6 o'clock, Lavelle Edwards Stadium. Your TV coverage for that will be ESPN Plus, so make sure you're prepared. And then Utah State will welcome in Idaho State coming up on Saturday the 5th at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. And the TV coverage there will be CBS Sports Network. Of course, it is the reimagined Pac-12. All the teams have state attached to them. Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Oregon State, San Diego State, Texas State, Utah State, and Washington State. Not a lot of people believe Utah State is a competitor in the reimagined Pac-12. I believe they were picked to finish 6th this season. And they've got a difficult non-con. They're at Washington after their opening game. Then they come down here to Salt Lake City to take on the Utes. Of course, Utah's non-con is Idaho, Arkansas, and the aforementioned Utah State Aggies, all here at home. BYU with kind of an interesting early slate because they will have Arizona as their second game of the season. And then they're at Colorado State. Their non-con will conclude with a battle against Notre Dame, the number 4 team in the country, according to both the coaches and the AP poll. Tickets for BYU Notre Dame, the cheapest one you can get right now is $500, and they are climbing. Ticket prices throughout the landscape of live sports right now are just through the roof. But we're almost there. We're 15 days away from kickoff for Utah football, and we'll get the latest from the Utes today on the program as Sammy Mora will join us right out of the gates. Our first guest today from Ute Zone, Sammy Mora will stop by. We'll get the latest down south with Jason Shepard. For some of you old school ESPN 700 listeners, he is known as Shep. He was the producer of the Bill and Spence program and has worked down at BYU TV now for quite some time. I should say BYU Broadcasting. So we'll bring in Shep today. Sean O'Connell, who hosts our midday program, our guy Sean, was able to interview Morgan Scalley today. Utah's head coach stopped by the OC show. If you missed that conversation, you will hear it on our program coming up at 4 o'clock today. And then it is official. Xavier Gozo lives in South London now, plays for Crystal Palace in the Premiership in the EPL, the best league in the world, according to most soccer experts. And RSL is in action tonight, taking on FC Dallas at America First Field for a 7:30 Mountain Time kick. And that game can be seen on Apple Television. So Jason Kreis, president of soccer operations, will stop by. The Royals are back in action against San Diego coming up on Friday. And then RSL has a road trip coming up to Orlando. So a little late summer, early fall soccer as we are inching closer and closer to playoff time in the NWSL and, of course, in MLS as well. The NFL is incrementally releasing their list of the top 100 players in pro football. Today it was revealed that Patrick Mahomes is number 18. People are angry about that for some reason, but NFL football, of course, right around the corner. Kind of that time of year where you might be doing some fantasy football drafts and such, getting ready for pro football, of course. Always a hot topic here on the station. So Sammy Mora, Jason Shepard, Morgan Scalley with Sean O'Connell, Jason Kreis, Me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and the producer of this program, 15 days out from Utah football, Porter Larson. Can you tease your pregame lineup yet? Do we know what that's going to look like?
A little bit. It's going to be a rotating cast of characters per usual. We're going to hear from former Utes of the past. I'm sure folks familiar with my show from the years gone by. We'll have Sly stopping by. We'll have Zach Moss stopping by, Robert Johnson, Jordan Wynn, Nate Orchard when we can round him up and kind of go from there. But yeah, we'll have a depending on the week, depending on the matchup, that will kind of depend on who I want to chat with. So each and every week, 4 hours before kickoff, though, I'll be blessing your airwaves.
Wow.
Yeah, you heard that.
Okay. I don't hate it. You can bless the airwaves, a little Utah football pregame show.
Can at least try.
Utah football fans will feel like they're being blessed when they finally tune in to hear games.
Right. That's the main part. It's not that I am on your airwaves. It's that we have football on the station. We got gridiron action out there in live. So that's what's blessing your airwaves, just to be clear.
Well, and you.
Yeah.
It can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Remember, on this show, we can hold multiple thoughts in our head at the same time. It doesn't have to be a binary take. It can be a couple of different things.
Maybe Spence Checketts will stop by every once in a while.
I'm just waiting for the invite. I'm at those tailgates. I see you out there. Are you going to be on location for home games? Do you know?
Some of them will be at Beer Bar.
Okay.
So we'll be on the way at the very least. You can stop by, get some tailgating passes and otherwise. But TBD. I'll be completely honest. Kind of dig doing it in the studio.
Oh, for
Makes
sure.
things easier.
For sure.
But we'll be on location for a few and sometimes up on campus, I'm sure.
The show always sounds better when you're in the studio, but sometimes it's fun to get the energy of the stadium and go up to a tailgate and kind of hang out. Can we do at least one pregame show from my living room so I can just stay on my couch in my pajamas?
Sure.
Sweet.
Sure.
I'm in.
Let's do it.
All right. Sammy Moore is going to be our first guest today, our friend from Ute Zone. But before Sammy stops by, courtesy of our friends at IFA Country Stores, it is time now for your opening tip. Like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for healthy green lawn. As the weather continues this month, make sure you're using IFA Step 3 Spring and Summer Lawn Food. For healthy turf that stays green every season, IFA Step 3 Lawn Food, it is the ultimate lawn owner power move, our good friend at IFA. Real quick, do you know if Sean had pancakes or waffles for lunch today?
I'm not sure why.
This microphone smells like syrup.
Interesting.
It's definitely syrup. So, I mean, what else, if it's not a pancake, if it's not a waffle, what else would have syrup on it?
That's a good question. I mean, you could, if you're a sicko, you could put syrup on almost anything.
I guess that's not like a little syrup on a piece of sausage, like a breakfast sandwich.
Uh-huh.
If Sean is here, will you effort to find out if he had some breakfast sandwiches while he was doing his show? Because I don't know that I can do this for 4 hours.
I can ask.
All right. Anyway, moving on from that. Okay. Porter, I actually want you to stay on the mic here because I did this exercise last night. So Stuart Mandel from The Athletic and Riles joined us yesterday and made some good points. And I'll reiterate what I say all the time. If you really want to know what's going on with your team, read the local beat writers, listen to the people that are up at practice, listen to the people that work for the program that are up there all the time. Now, the delicate part about that is, and Jason Shepard's going to join us later from BYU TV. Jason Shepard works for BYU. So oftentimes some media messaging from quote-unquote media members who are employed by the school can get clouded with propaganda that the athletic department of the school wants you to kind of further into the community. But, ultimately, that's why we had, Tony Jones on for so long, and we will continue to have Tony on during basketball season, or Andy Larson or Sarah Todd or whoever the local beat writers are. They are with the team. They travel with the team. They're at practice every day. So I'm not saying you should take Stuart Mandel's take as gospel, but Stuart is a smart guy who does cover the Big 12 like he does the SEC and the Big 10. Sometimes, like if you're watching ESPN, you have to keep in mind they're in bed with the SEC. And so their coverage can get a little bit slanted when they start talking about the Big 12. Stuart Mandel yesterday picked Utah to finish 9th in the conference, go 4-5 in conference play, and 7-5 overall. So, Porter, if we operated off the premise that Mandel is close to being correct, the 5 games that Utah would probably be assumed to lose, I'm stretching here. It'd probably be BYU at home, at Arizona, at TCU, Houston at home. And then I don't even know what that 5th loss would be. Is it at Iowa State? Is it home against Kansas? Is it at Colorado? Is it at Cincinnati? Like, I do not see 5 losses on the schedule. I tried to stretch my mind last night. I just don't.
Kind of with you on that. I see this Utah team winning 8 games and maybe more. That's all dependent on this offensive line and what a few things that we are still putting question marks on what they actually look like. But I'm with you. I think 7-5 not only would be a bit of a disappointment for a lot of folks here to get the Morgan Scalley era started, but it would also require like a situation we don't know about yet, a injury, like a really bad run of play, drama with the staff or something. Otherwise, like I don't see this team with 5 losses in. A lot of that is because of the schedule. As you just laid out, just look at that, right? Look at how many home games Utah has and which games they avoid on the road, which conference teams they avoid altogether. I think that 7-5 is like the floor, and that, again, would require something that is unforeseen happening, a Devin Dampier injury, a defense that's ravaged by injuries or otherwise. I don't see that happening, but we'll have to check in November.
Kyle Whittingham's first year as Utah's coach was 2005.
Yep.
They were in the Mountain West Conference. 7-5 overall, 4-4 in Mountain West Conference play.
Yeah.
That's
the one X factor is if, of course, injuries and otherwise, but also if maybe Morgan needs a little bit more time than everyone here is assuming. That's another one as well. I think he's ready for it. I don't think we see like an adjustment period like that, but we'll have to see. Because to be clear, that 2005 team personnel-wise shouldn't have gone 7-5. They should have won more games.
Right. 2006, 8-5 in the Mountain West, 5-3 overall. 2007, 9-4. So Kyle improved his record by 1 win for 3 straight years. 5-3 in the Mountain West in both those seasons. And then, of course, the famous 2008 season that culminated in the Sugar Bowl victory, a number 4 ranking in the coaches, number 2 in AP, 13-0, 8-0 overall. That win in the Sugar Bowl against Bama. Still, in my opinion, the biggest win in program history. 2 10-3 seasons, final 2 seasons in the Mountain West, 6-2, 7-1. So Kyle found his footing, but if we're honest, it took at least 2, if not 3 seasons. And then they moved to the Pac-12. They had that weird first year where they went 4-5 in conference play, 8-5 overall, but were actually in the mix until the end. And then 2 5-7 seasons in the Pac-12, 3-6 and 2-7 in conference. Like, we have to be honest about how this might look based off of a guy who we all believe is ready in Morgan Scalley, but simply has never done this before. Dr. Hill has been in studio multiple times, and he's outlined that Kyle was his choice. He didn't really have a backup. That fateful day when Kyle informed former teammates and people that he had taken the BYU job, as Dr. Hill outlined on this station and in his book, he told Kyle, he's like, I got to know because I got to get going. Like, next time he's in studio, I'm going to ask him what the other options were because I don't even know that there were options at that point. And then Kyle famously asked Dr. Hill for a couple of hours. The players showed up at his house, and he decided to come back to Utah. But you just look at the record, and ultimately it took Kyle, who is a legend here and who will always be a legend here, a few years to find his footing. And that's not uncommon in college football. The question I have is, with a fan base now that is accustomed to teams winning 10 games and competing for conference championships, if it doesn't look great year one, will Morgan get the same patience that Kyle got? And there's some revisionist historians that I've heard talk or write about how they always thought Kyle was the guy. And, because of the conference championships, because of the bowl wins, because of the Rose Bowls, they viewed it as always tremendously successful. That wasn't the case. And there were people around here wondering if Kyle was the guy. Kalani got a little bit of grace, if we're honest. Now, I do think one of the things that was, in Kalani's favor is most everybody understood that the independence thing was going to be rough to try to get through. But Kalani's first year was successful. He was 9-4, but then he went 4-9. They did not make a bowl. Then 2 7-6 seasons. Then that 2020 season was COVID. They went 11-1, but they didn't play anybody, even though they were like anybody, anytime, anywhere, like the headbands everybody was wearing. First year in the Big 12 for Kalani, 5-7, 2-7 in conference, did not make a bowl game. So whether it's Kalani or Kyle or anybody else, it usually takes a minute for this thing to land. And while we're hoping that Morgan is ready to get going and will win a lot of games, I just think we probably are smart to temper expectations just a little bit. All right. We will catch our first break of this Wednesday show. Coming up on the other side, more Utah football. Sammy Mora will stop by from our friends at Utah. I want to let you know that ESPN 700 invites you to be a child's advocate. Visit ESPN700sports.com or AppleTreeForKids.com for more information and to donate now. Quick break. Sammy Moore is up next on ESPN 700. All right, Porter, I've cracked the code. I did a little recon during the break. For our listeners, if you missed the first segment, the microphone smells like syrup, and it's a rather potent stench. So I was pontificating on the possibility of Sean smashing some pancakes during his show.
Some Egos?
Ooh, I like me an Eggo. I haven't had an Eggo in a minute. So it turns out there's a wrapper on the ground. It is a maple glazed donut protein bar that Sean was eating.
That tracks.
And it also, I'm just glad my sense of smell is still good because it does smell like syrup, and it was maple syrup. It was
Your hound dog.
I knew that I only had COVID once. Did you ever get COVID?
Yeah.
Only got it once, and I didn't feel very well. Ordered some Thai food. Took a bite, nothing. I'm like, oh, I have COVID.
Oh, there you go.
Sure enough.
Yeah, I had a bout with it, and you'll remember because I missed a week of the show, and I don't do that really. Well, I guess it was before you. That's right. It was before things were like known.
Oh, okay.
So it was like February, maybe January of the year before everything shut down. And they're like, we think this is pneumonia, maybe, but it was not fun. I was bedridden for a minute.
Yeah, it took me 3 or 4 days. Fun times, COVID, lockdown and such. I wonder if Sammy Mora from Utah has a COVID lockdown memory she'd like to share to start out the show today.
The biggest one that I was just thinking about when you guys were talking about this is I missed the Utah-Oklahoma Red Rocks meet because everyone in our family got COVID. And it was, like, really weird because, like, all I had was a stuffy nose. My little brother, all he had was, like, a stuffy nose. My mom didn't have anything. It was my dad who got it the worst, but he got it, like, 5 days after we got our, like, positive test back. So that's probably the biggest thing that I missed. And that meet was like one of the better meets of that season. But yeah, that was a wild time. I don't think of it fondly at all.
No, not at all. Did you pick up any hobbies? Did you? I started to cook. That's when I got into cooking. Now I love it. Did you pick up any hobbies during COVID?
So I actually got really bad, like really, really, really into working out a lot more. Like I wrecked my knees playing soccer growing up, so I can't do running and stuff. So I ended up cycling a lot. And I was, at one point during the pandemic, I was cycling like 5 or 6 miles a day. And graphic design is like one of those little side passions I have. I would spend hours and hours and hours just on Photoshop, just making up just random Photoshop edits of some of my favorite, pieces of media and stuff, whether it was like TV shows or books or whatever, just to pass the time.
It's probably helpful with your job now, is it not?
Oh, no, it is. It is. And I had taken a couple of graphic design classes at the U and stuff. And so like all of our National Signing Day graphics that we run over at UTZone, I make by myself. I start working on them around Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving, and then whenever we write a story about a commit on signing day, those graphics that you guys see on our website, I made all of them myself.
Very impressive, Sammy. A jack of all trades. Got to have a lot of tools in that tool belt. All right, we started the show off today. So Stuart Mandel, who joins us from time to time, picked Utah football to finish 9th in the Big 12, has them at 7-5, and 4-5 in conference play. So I feel like that's a little low. I'm sure you would agree with that. But we were talking about the first few seasons for Witt and the first few seasons for Kalani. Kyle's first season as the head coach was 2005. They were in the Mountain West. Utah was 7-5, 4-4 overall. Then it was 8-5, 5-3 in conference. I should say 4-4 in conference. Then it was 9-4 and 5-3 in conference. Then they had the 2008 breakthrough where they went undefeated. And first few years in the Pac-12, 8-5, 5-7, 5-7, 4-5 in conference, 3-6, 2-7 in conference. Kalani's second year, 4-9, 7-6, 7-6. First year in the Big 12, 5-7, and 2-7 overall. Of course, every situation is different. I'm not saying because Witt and Kalani struggled early on, Morgan is going to. I just bring it up with the context because I'm sure that's where Mandel's head is with a new head coach and replacing a lot of players. But to that, Sammy, you say what?
We actually had a discussion about this over on the UTZone board this morning, and I love Stuart. I love the work he does, but I honestly, this is one of those takes that just feels kind of, not great to me, because if you read his little blurb he wrote about Utah, he says that there was a lot of player attrition. And I get it. Yes, losing the entire offensive line to the NFL or graduation is a big loss. And you lost 5 players to Michigan. You lost Teo Johnson to UCLA. But it felt like when he was writing that, it felt like he didn't even have a chance to look at the roster, and he just kind of went based on what he thinks is a lot of attrition. Because last time I checked, Utah retained Devin Dampier and Bert Ficklin. They retained Wayshawn Parker. They retained Jackson Benny, John O'Hall, all of these great and key players on both sides of the ball. So that was the big thing I didn't agree with, is he's acting like the cabinets are completely bare. There's nobody left at Utah because Kyle left. And, let the cards, let's just play football. I'm kind of over the point of talking about hypotheticals. I just want to see some actual football. And I know that Utah is one of those programs where when you sleep on them, you give them bulletin board material, anything like that, it just makes them stronger. And I think that that's something that I want to see how this team is reacting to this year when it comes to all the haters, as people would say, about this year. I know the offensive line is sick about hearing about how they had to replace 5 starters. No one believes in them, all those types of things. But, yeah, hypotheticals, I'm at that point of the offseason where it's like, I'm sick of hypotheticals. Let's just play some ball.
Well, Sammy, that's called sports talk radio, and that's called poll season. I mean, preseason polls have always been more or less irrelevant, and maybe more so now than ever, with the ability to rebuild your team in one off season. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that they've ever been something that really tells the entire story at all. But I feel like maybe now more than ever, they're as irrelevant as they've ever been.
Oh, 100%. Like, every year it seems like there's one team that everyone is like, we should all buy hype on, and then like they bottom out at the end of the year. I feel like USC is a good team to check that box. Like, every year it's like, this is the year for USC, and then every year they just like don't really meet expectations. But I get it. People gotta find some way to pass the time. I know we all do our own things with our own sports media outlets to talk about pass through those dog days, but I'm just ready for some actual live football and some live ball.
Yeah, and I even this morning went through the exercise. I decided, all right, I'm going to operate off the hypothetical that what Stewart is predicting is actually real. I just don't see 5 losses on the schedule. I mean, if I really expanded my mind, I could probably get to 4, but I don't know that I see that either. I mean, I feel like 8 is the absolute absolute basement for this team. I don't think I see anything lower than 8 wins.
I can justify how you can got to 5, because I think the 5 that people are probably like looking at is some form of combination of Houston, BYU, Arizona, TCU, and then I've seen people even start questioning Arkansas now, and if Arkansas is going to be a loss, which if we're talking about a first-year head coach that kind of feels like his back is already up against the wall, I feel like it's Ryan Silverfield in Arkansas. I feel like that's where that program is at right now. But I'm kind of in the same boat. I can justify 4. I think realistically, more likely, and I know you and I have talked about this many, many, many times, I'm more in that 2 to 1 loss range right now, just with how the schedule is shaping up, what we've heard about camp, what we've heard about other camps. I'm in that 1 to 2 range right now. 5 feels like a stretch to me, but weirder things have happened in college football, so we'll have to see.
Wanted to ask you about the opener. We talked to Bill about this yesterday, and Dan stopped by earlier in the week. And look, it's just one of those games. Utah's a 34.5-point favorite. It will be inevitable that when it's not 78-0 after 5 minutes, people are going to get restless, because that's how it goes. We've seen some of these FBS, FCS things get a little loose, where it's like 7-3 after the first quarter, and you can feel the vibe in the stadium. People are getting a little bit nervous. So we will all keep calm and carry on. But what do you want to see from Utah in their opener? What are some of the dynamics you're looking for, and what are you hoping, just generally speaking, the final score looks like?
Well, I think the big thing is that there's a win at the end of the game. I'm not too focused on score. I think Utah's going to be able to handle Idaho, frankly, very easily. I think the big thing for me is, what does this offense look like without giving up everything? Because we know that every year, usually the first game of the season, it's getting the rust off of guys in a live action, and like against someone they're not used to playing. because for the last, 6-7 months, they've been hitting somebody who's wearing the same jersey as them. They know the tendency of the guy across from them. So I think it's about shaking off the rust and getting guys back into that actual live game speed. You're not just having one tackle practice a week. You're actually getting hit for 60 minutes of a football game. So I think that's like what we should expect from most openers. It might start out a little bit slow. Utah seems to always start out slow the first game of the season, unless you want to count like the Florida game where Bryson Barnes had that like bomb to Money Parks to start the game. Like that was probably one of the only times Utah's like season opener or first or second game, things didn't start out a little bit slow. But I want to see what this offense looks like with my own eyes in a live situation, because we've seen what it looks like in spring ball. But again, spring ball is vastly different than what we're about to see this right now. Things are changing, things are evolving, guys are settling into their roles a lot differently now. And, as a beat, I think we're getting a clearer picture of who might be playing where when that first game starts. But those are the big things for me. I know a lot of people want to see that offensive line, and I get that. There's still some doubt surrounding the offensive line, even though I'm starting to get more and more confidence about that group every single day. But it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes down.
So you had referenced kind of how the schedule is shaping up, and I think one of the more underrated dynamics, it's good to have BYU at home. It's good to have Houston at home. But I think it's good to have your opener on a Thursday because you have 9 days between Idaho and Arkansas,
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Thursday games. I know a lot of people don't really like it. I find it fun. It's like some of my favorite memories growing up were getting checked out of school early and going up to Rice Eccles on a Thursday to watch football. And so I like Thursday games. And like you said, especially with a game like Arkansas being right after, 9 days to prep is really great because you already have Arkansas complaining and stressing out about, how they have to play Utah and then they have to fly all the way out here and then they have to fly back to Arkansas and then they have to host Georgia again early that next week. So I like it. I'm here for it. Get this offense like in a flow and in a rhythm, and then decide to hit the road and go play Iowa State.
I hear you and Dan use a lot of nicknames. Hit me with some of your favorite nicknames that have come out of camp so far.
Well, this one didn't come out of camp, but we call Larry Simmons Touchdown Larry over on Ute Zone. That one started because Dan could not remember Larry's last name when we were recording one of our podcasts, and so it just came out as Larry that scores touchdowns, and then that evolved to Touchdown Larry. Keith Olson is aptly known as Super Keith on our board because he just plays everywhere and he just does so many different things. I'm trying to think of some other ones, but those are the two big ones. We challenge our subscribers over at Ute Zone to let's come up with some new nicknames for these guys every single year. And I know somebody on our board actually called Larry Touchdown Larry at one of the fan events they had, and Larry had never heard it before, and he kind of smiles and chuckles and stuff. So I like it. It's one of our more unique things that we do at Ute Zone. So those are probably my two favorite ones. I'm particularly apt to Touchdown Larry, though.
One of the other dynamics that I've just kind of noticed a little bit, and I don't want to completely juxtapose this to what's going on at BYU with Kalani and the AD and the president of the school, but you just don't want any drama, emotional storylines 2 weeks prior to the first game. And if we're honest, it does feel like more often than not over the past 5 or 6 years, there's this undercurrent of, is Cam healthy? Is Brant healthy? Mm-hmm. Who's the quarterback? Is Witt leaving? Is this his last year? And as I tell you all the time, we'll let you handle the vibes, Sammy. I'm results. The vibes are vibes. One of the things I like, though, is it just feels like it's calm up there. Like there's not a lot of drama. We're not hearing about players getting kicked out of practice or fighting or whatever, injuries. It just feels like things are pretty calm up there. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I agree. And like you said, I am a vibes person, and that's the vibe of this team feels very different. And I know that Utah's always been like a family first culture, even going back to the Whittingham days and stuff. But for some reason, it just feels like it's been timed by a million this year. I think partially it's because Morgan has been a Ute for his entire life. That's the big thing he said multiple times. He's always been a Ute. He always will be a Ute. I think he knows especially what it's like to be in these kids' positions playing at Utah. But that's the big thing. There's no diva behavior. I know the wide receivers and the corners are probably known for being the most diva people in football in general. And I don't think there's a single guy in either room that I would classify as a diva. I mean, you have Devin taking all of his wide receivers to Arizona over the summer for that little training session, and Devin vlogged the entire thing on YouTube. And I went and watched that hour-long vlog, and it was just very chill. It was like nobody was upset. Like no one was throwing temper tantrums. It was just a very chill kind of vibe. And I think that's the same with the corners. Like I asked Morgan about corner depth earlier in the week, and he basically said, like, the wide receivers and the corners, they usually are fighting and then going after each other even after the whistle's blown. Like, this group, they don't do that. Like, they know when there's time to be physical and there's a time to love each other up and be, like, siblings. Not like siblings, but, like, also brothers. And I think that that's the big thing that I think is helping this Utah team, because with a new head coach and all the stuff that went on in the offseason, there could have been a lot of splinters, fracturing, and just uneasiness in the locker room and in the culture of the program, but it doesn't feel like that at all. It just feels like this is the same Utah we've been living with for years, except for it's not. And I actually really enjoy it. It's not like we're having to get used to a whole new situation as well as media. We know what we can expect from Utah.
Is there any I haven't heard any, but has there been any conversation? And look, it's hard to actually pin down because Utah is the number 21 team in the country, according to the AP and the coaches poll. But there are plenty of people that do believe this team is going to take a step backwards. Do you hear any of that conversation as far as chip on the shoulder stuff with coaches and players?
Oh, you hear it from the offensive line. Like, that's the big group that it's heard from. I think the two rooms that would probably be the most justified to have that chip on their shoulder is the offensive and the defensive line. I can't remember who it was on the defensive line, whether it was a tackle or an edge rusher, but one of them was talking about either earlier this week or late last week that they know that there's a high standard. They know that last year was not the norm for a Utah defensive line, and they want to right that, and they want to prove that this defensive line is still the defensive line that Utah fans know and love and have and hang their hat on. So I think those are the two biggest groups. I know Devin feels like he is like, or Jason Pataki of the Salt Lake Tribune wrote a story about how he wants to prove how he is more than just like a quarterback under Jason Beck. Like, he wants to prove that he can be successful in the system. Like, that's a chip on his shoulder. Wayshawn has a chip on his shoulder because he was robbed of that 1,000-yard rushing season last year. So there are chips on the shoulder. I don't think it's not as team-wide. There's certain rooms where I don't think they have that chip, but there are individuals and there are some groups that do have that chip.
Are you starting, because Morgan, in his Monday media availability, and he chatted with Sean earlier today on the station, he is alluding to, these guys are ready to play. This is the time of camp where we've had spring ball over forever, and now, look, I do believe it doesn't help when it's so freaking hot every day, and I know Morgan's working those guys hard. Do you get a sense up there that they are kind of over the training camp thing, the fall camp thing, and they're ready to kick it off?
I wouldn't say over. I wouldn't use the word over it. I think it's more just like you're finally in that final countdown. Like, you can feel that football is coming. Week 0 is next weekend, I think. Like, it's so close that you can taste it. And I think that's what it is. I think it's more of an excitement to, we finally made it to that point rather than, I'm just over all this training camp and stuff. Because at the end of the day, these guys love football. And that's why they're here. That's why they're doing this. So I don't see them being over it as much as they are just, like, excited that we're finally there. We're finally at almost the start of the season.
We have had a little bit of an opportunity to observe, here or there, 20, 30 minutes here or there. Then we had the scrimmage last Saturday. I wonder if you could share any takeaways from what you've actually been able to see with your own eyes with our listeners.
I'm buying Braden Pagan stock. I think that's one of the biggest ones. You've seen it in clips they posted on social media. There's things I've heard. There's things that I've seen that I'm buying BP stock right now. I think that he has the potential to have a very, very, very special season for Utah. He was named to the Biletnikoff watch list this year. I think that he's going to be in a good position to be one of the first Utes to, like, actually live up to the hype, because, usually Utah wide receivers are just like, well, they'll catch the ball 1 or 2 times a game and they won't reach more than, 600 yards per season. So I'm buying Braden Pagan stock. I'm also buying Daniel Bray stock. He looked very impressive during our 20 minutes of viewing on Tuesday. offensive line, I think like I said earlier, I'm getting more and more comfortable with the guys that I think are going to be the starters up there on game one. Defensively, I'm very excited to watch Elijah Reed put on some pads and hit somebody this fall. He is just one of the most physical corners I've ever seen. I've watched when I watch his film, the little bit we saw back in spring. I think those are the biggest ones right now. Obviously, we get one more viewing on Friday, and then we're done for the fall camp. But it's going to be it's interesting that I think I'm getting a clearer and clearer picture about what I can expect and what I hope to see from some of these guys this fall.
Well, Sammy, since you mentioned it, I have to follow up with it. If you feel like you have that starting five for that O-line, I'd love to hear the names if you feel comfortable going with it now.
Oh, okay. It's my starting offensive line has kind of been the same most of fall. I think it's Zeroe Williams, Solatoa Moiai, Alex Harrison, and then Keith Olson, and then Cedric Jefferson. I think that has been my offensive line going back to before fall camp started. I just thought that that's how it was going to shake out. And Morgan said they still don't have a starting five yet, but that's just what my gut and what the vibes are telling me right now about the offensive line.
The question comes down to, do you believe they know? Well, okay, they don't have to tell us. I wish that they would. Sometimes I think the clandestine messaging reeks of a little bit of paranoia, but Morgan has explained himself to us as to why he keeps certain things to himself, and I get it, because all we want is for them to win football games, and Morgan talks about this. Like, for all the coaches, and this is not a shot at Kalani, because there are plenty of coaches across Kyle. Like, when I'm hearing Kalani complain about resources, I'm actually thinking about Kyle, because even to this day, Witt is at Michigan with maybe the biggest endowment in a country, and still, when he's at the microphone, he talks about having resources, and that's what you have to have in this day and age. I don't know that I've ever heard Morgan say anything other than, if we win football games, people will show up and they will donate money. Am I kind of on the scent there, or have you heard Morgan kind of take the route that all these other coaches take?
I haven't heard Morgan take the route. I think it's more of a build it and they will come situation. Morgan is such a great people person. Like, he will try and make a deep connection with everybody who comes through the program, whether it's a recruit's family, whether it's a booster, his own players, stuff like that. He jokes around with us very frequently and very often at practices and stuff. He's just a people person, and I think that is a reason why, people would donate. I think if he wins, and if he wins big, everyone's going to want to get involved. People are going to want to support this team, especially when you take into the consideration and the aspect that he is a homegrown Ute. He was born a Ute. He was raised a Ute. He played at Utah. He's coached here his entire career. I think that's another reason why people would get involved and want to donate. But I don't see Morgan taking that approach of begging for money or saying, well, we're not going to be able to do this without that. I just don't see that. I don't see him doing that. I don't see that's how he would approach something like this.
What I was going to ask you is, as I kind of went into a little bit of a non sequitur about the way he kind of approaches things, you can keep it to yourself. That is your right. The question is, do you think they know at this point more or less who the starters are, all positional groups, or do you think there's still battles going on?
I think there might be one position battle left, but for the most part, I think everything is settled. I'm not going to say which position group because I don't want to get in trouble, but I have an idea of which one is still up in the air.
Wait, what? Who would you get in trouble with?
People. Just kidding.
Paul, if you're listening, leave Sammy alone. Okay, let's not get Sammy in trouble. Okay, fair enough, Sammy. Before I set you loose, where can people go get the work?
They can find us over at Ute Zone, which is a part of the On3 and Rivals network. We are still running our massive 75% off sale. If you've been on the fence about joining Ute Zone, there's never a better time to join than now. It comes out to $2.50 a month or $30 for your first year. We are seeing such great response from that sale. If you want to join the biggest, the greatest, the most informed group of Utah fans on the internet, Ute Zone's the place to be. You can find me on Twitter at @S_Mora_on3, and you can follow the Ute Zone account at Ute Zone. Sammy, thanks for the time. Almost to game day. Keep up the great work, okay? Thanks, Ben. All right, Sammy Mora from Ute Zone joins us today. That's brought to you by the Advocates.
Advocates are award-winning injury attorneys. It's a simple win. If another driver's negligence leaves you injured with medical bills that you can't pay, you need to call the injury attorneys at the Advocates. The Advocates will take care of hospital bills. They're giving you no-cost consultations right now. You'll never pay a dime out of your pocket while the Advocates work on recovering the compensation you deserve. If you're injured while jogging, call the Advocates. If you're injured while walking the dog, call the Advocates. Auto accidents, injured while riding your motorcycle, call the Advocates. If you've been injured in an accident, the Advocates are here to help. They'll fight for you so you can focus on your recovery. You didn't deserve to be in an accident, but you do deserve an advocate. Call 801-355-5550 or go to UtahAdvocates.com. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Jason Shepard will join us. The latest on BYU right here on ESPN 700. About 2 weeks away, kids. Game day's almost here. Utah in action on Thursday, September the 3rd against Idaho. 2 days later, BYU will welcome in Utah Tech, and Utah State welcomes in Idaho State. For the latest on what's going down south, we welcome in a friend of the show on a Hot or Not Wednesday, Jason Shepard. Hello, Shep. How are you?
Hello. I wasn't aware we were allowed to do Hot or Not anymore.
Oh, we very much are not. I wonder how many people even get that reference,
Well, for those that do, it was a good time.
It was a good time. How long do you think that segment would last if we tried to bring that back?
Oh, probably 3 minutes.
If that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Look, there's a lot I want to get to. And let's be very clear. Jason Shepard is a BYU employee who wants to keep his job, and he is my friend, so I want him to keep his job. But look, Kalani's not a complainer. He just isn't. Never complained up here. He's been down there 11 years. So when Kalani has something to say that indicates he might not be thrilled with whatever he's not thrilled with, it is very newsworthy and noteworthy. Your coworker, Jerem Jordan, joined Sean this week to talk about it. We've had a lot of guests on the station to kind of help us understand what's going on. What's the vibe down there with this thing that seems to be permeating throughout BYU?
Yeah, everybody understands why it's a talking point for everybody right now. But the vibe is honestly, especially this week compared to last week, it's kind of like, let's just get to work. That's kind of the way it is. As a practice yesterday, and it wasn't brought up. Nothing was brought up. It was all about football. And quite frankly, I think that's just kind of how everybody wants it. Like that's one of the things that you get to this point of camp, and it's like let's just get to the games. That's kind of where everybody's focus is right now. Is the football season's going to be here in a little over 2 weeks. All the other stuff is going to take care of itself. However, it's going to take care of itself. The things that we can worry about right now is getting ready for the football season. That's kind of the vibe.
Well, and that's kind of ultimately the way I've covered the story because, and you know this, the results create narratives. So if BYU goes out and they get off to a great start to the season, then this will fade into the background. If they stub their toe against Arizona, people will start to wonder if it's really affecting the locker room. You know what I mean? Like it's really going to be predicated on how the football team performs on the field, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, the football team has a chance to do something really, really special this year, and they're going to get a chance to prove it. It was interesting because yesterday, during the general media availability, A-Rod was one of the guys that came and was part of the general media interviews. And I asked him about, look, anytime there are people that talk about you, whether it's good or bad, and in this case, there's a lot of good about the football team being talked about in terms of how good they can be. There are a lot of national publications that are predicting really big things for BYU this year. And I asked him, I said, how do you navigate that part of it when it's all of this praise being heaped upon you? How do you handle that, especially because you don't want people to pay attention to noise, but yet this team, especially over the last 2 years, has gone 23-4 and has put themselves in a position to warrant this type of praise. And, he said it really doesn't matter what anybody says, good or bad. He says, we're going to be judged based on how we perform. And if we don't perform to the best of our ability this year, it's not going to matter. So while we get into these really big narratives and, overarching themes for things, it really is so simple. I mean, you and I have been in sports our most of our entire lives. You obviously grew up in it more than I did. Mine's been more professional, but, we see how these guys handle their business, and it really is, it's game by game. It's play by play. And even when it's good stuff, these coaches don't want the players to listen to it. They want them to focus on the task at hand because this really could be one of those special years for BYU.
Yeah, and the reality now is it's impossible to keep your players insulated from information because of how readily available it is for all of us. I mean, Quinn Snyder used to join the show I did with Gordon every week, and he would tell these anecdotes about going into the locker room to address his team. And at halftime, the first thing they all did was grab their cell phones. Their head is down looking at their cell phones. They're looking at social. They're looking at their mentions. So whether you like it or not, no, best laid plans aside, you can't insulate players from information now. It's just too readily available and part of our society.
No, there's no question about it. I mean, you probably have done a much better job of staying away from social media than I am, because I'm still the guy. As soon as I wake up, I check and see what I've missed throughout the night. I mean, that's still me. I can't look. I couldn't do it because I can't do it now, and I'm not even an athlete, and I can't do it. So, I mean, I totally get it's very much an easier said than done thing, but I do think that those athletes that are able to do that, to put the other stuff aside and keep, you hear it all the time, keep the main thing. I think those players, those athletes are significantly successful because of that. It is most definitely a skill in today's world.
Tell me, we were talking about this to start the show. Stuart Mandel released his Big 12 predictions. He has BYU winning the conference. The coaches voted BYU to win the conference as well. Adam Rittenberg's story about Kalani this week might shed some light on that because everybody loves Kalani. But, up here, you've got a first-year head coach in Morgan Scalley, and Stu Mandel picked Utah to finish 9th in the conference with a record of 7-5 overall and 4-5 in conference play. And early on, I mean, Kalani had a solid first year at 9-4, but then it was 4-9, 7-6, 7-6. First year in the Big 12, 5-7, 2-7 in conference, 11th in the conference. As we're kind of watching Morgan start his journey, what have you witnessed from Kalani that's allowed him to figure this out the way that he has?
Well, I mean, it just takes time. I mean, until you've been in that seat, you can be around it for years, for decades, but until you're the one in charge, I don't think any of us realize everything that goes along with it. And you remember that first year, and then you go through a couple of different coordinators. Speaking of Kalani's situation, you go through, you make some coordinator changes, and then you're just trying to find your footing. You're trying to find the right recipe to what makes everything work. You look, and quite frankly, at least for Morgan's situation, he's coming into this where a lot of these wholesale changes have already been made. Now, granted, you could have another wholesale change in about an hour and then another one in about 4 hours. So it's actually something I asked Kalani about. I'm like, how do you deal with this? Because, as your tenure has gone on, you've had to deal with so many big changes to how and what it means to be a head coach. And he's like, look, I mean, it is what it is. You just have to navigate it. But, yeah, you have to learn as you go. And, when I saw that Stuart Mandel had Utah 9th, I cannot see. Now, I probably have them slightly lower than where a lot of other people do, because I do think I have Houston ahead of Utah. I think Houston can be really, really good. I think there's a chance Arizona could be better than Utah this year, but I do not have them any lower than 5th at worst, and they could absolutely be up as high as 3. So when I saw 9, that did not make any sense to me. But, to your question again, Kalani's had to go through ups and downs and all that stuff. He had to figure it out on the fly. And Morgan's going to have to go through the exact same thing, being around Witt as long as he was, being around Urban, as a player and whatnot, all of the people he's been around. Look, it's the same thing for us in this business. Spencer, we've been around guys. We were around guys until we got our shot. But until we got our shot, we thought we could do it. But then you get into that seat, and it's like, okay, well, now you got to do it. And it's a trial and error. And I think that's the way it will be. It's the way it was for Kalani. I think it's the way it will be for Morgan at Utah.
There's some people that believe, I've heard multiple people say out loud, that Jay Hill is potentially the best coach, was the best coach in the state, including Kyle, including Kalani, including A-Rod and Morgan. Now, Kelly Papinga's been there forever. And just like Colton Swan is kind of thought to essentially believe in the same defensive principles that Morgan does, I would imagine Kelly is ready to just kind of keep the ship afloat. But conceptually, when it comes to schemes and concepts, is there going to be anything different about BYU's defense this year?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's probably my biggest question. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's probably, though, the thing that I'm going to pay attention to the most. This BYU offense is going to be fantastic. And that's even with still trying to figure out, who's going to be the wide receiver that steps up. And I know a lot of people immediately go to, I'm going to be paying attention mostly to the receivers because I want to see how that plays out. For me, it's actually what you just said. You bring back so much production. In fact, you probably added to the overall talent on defense, but yet we don't know what's going to look different schematically. Is there going to be anything significantly different? And so that's honestly what I'm probably going to be paying attention to the most, and something that's got my eye probably more than anything else. As you mentioned, Kelly has been in this business a long, long time, spent so much time under Bronco, and over the last couple of seasons has been with Kalani and Jay Hill, and, with Gary Anderson being down here, there's obviously that added influence as well. So he's got a lot of different places that he can pull from. So I am generally excited and curious to know actually what it looks like, because we know how good this defense has been over the last 2 years specifically, but really over the last 2 to 3 years. And now I think there are legitimately 4 or 5 at least NFL guys on that side of the football. And so, yeah, that's really where my focus will be to start the year is what does this defense actually look like with the same personnel, but with the new coordinator? Is it going to look different? Is it not? Is it going to be a bit of a hybrid? Those are all questions that I'm anxiously awaiting.
BYU's single-season rushing record is held by Tyler Algier, 1,606 yards. L.J. Martin last year, 1,305 yards, 236 carries, an average of 5.5. I mean, the numbers are just stupid. Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year a year ago. I like the Sione Moa kid. He seemed like he would be a pain to tackle. L.J. does too. Do you think Sione is going to cut into his touches, or could we see L.J. approach that record?
No, I think it's absolutely possible that LJ could get to that point. I do think that a healthy Sione Moa is going to demand some looks and some carries, and quite frankly, BYU has really needed that 1-2 combination. They were actually talking about it yesterday, Sione said that LJ's his mentor. And matter of fact, I don't know if people realize, for those that heard the quote that I'm about to talk about, I don't know if they realized that LJ was actually behind the media scrum listening in on this. But he basically said that they're basically like SpongeBob and Patrick. They're like the 1-2. They're like best friends, and they're the 1-2 combination. And then they went into, Reggie Bush and Lindo White and all those guys that are 1-2 combos. BYU can really use another running back besides LJ to help carry the load. And I think obviously LJ was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. He's the preseason Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. This is a guy that demands attention. We know what he can do with the ball, especially in front of one of the best offensive lines in the nation. This offensive line is – they are elite, and it's going to be fun to see what this team does on the ground. My other question is, we know that last year Bear wasn't really – he didn't with the exception of a couple of games, and one that really comes to mind is the Iowa State game where LJ ended up coming out of the game and Bear ended up having to throw the football and did it masterfully, and BYU wins the game. But I think everybody expected an evolution in the passing game from Bear. But if you're A-Rod, how do you do that? Because do you want to throw the ball more and take away from LJ on the ground? It's a fascinating concept on what the offense is going to be. I mentioned to you earlier, I think this offense is going to be amazing. But I am interested to see how A-Rod handles having running backs like LJ and Sione Moa, and Preston Rex is probably your third guy there, with a guy like Bear who is getting praise upon praise from A-Rod about his ability to go from year one to year two in this offense and how much faster he's processing everything, and talking about how his passing ability has improved immensely. Look, you've got two NFL tight ends that are going to be there in Lyons and Saliapaga. I mean, the balance of run and pass is going to be fascinating to watch.
The natural follow-up is, which one is SpongeBob and which one is Patrick?
Yeah, you know what? And I missed it yesterday. I thought about asking, but I thought it was at the time I didn't ask the question because I thought it was implied that since SpongeBob's kind of the main character, that was LJ, and then Sione would be Patrick. But the more I thought about it, I guess from a personality standpoint, maybe that was the wrong call on my part. It never got asked, and that's one thing I'll carry to my grave that I didn't ask.
All right, well, I'm glad we got that settled, Shep. Up here, the positional group that most people have questions about is the O-line, because all five of those guys are playing on Sundays now, and two are first-round picks. And it feels like down there, we had A-Rod on the show a couple weeks ago. Of course, Chase Roberts is in the NFL. Parker Kingston is dealing with his situation. You referenced the tight ends, but the leading returning receiver, I believe, is LJ, right out of the backfield. How's that wide receiver room shaping up?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's set up as an opportunity for pretty much anybody to grab that spot. I think going in, just because of how many years he's been in the program and in the system, I think everybody assumes that wide receiver one eventually becomes JoJo Phillips. I mean, he's big, he's strong. You know, the issue with him last year was he was injured, had some drops. You know, that's something he's obviously got to clean up. But he's the guy that I think everybody looks at as the guy going in that should be wide receiver one. But then you bring in the Casper kid from Oregon, another tall receiver. I'll tell you, the receivers are big. That's one thing they have, are big receivers. So JoJo is the one you immediately look at. But the freshman legend Glasgow, who is the cousin of Isaiah Glasgow, this is a guy to pay attention to. I believe he's going to get an opportunity to make a pretty big impact, not just in the receivers, but in the offense in general. He's a guy that I know they're extremely excited to have. But, you know, the word I use is opportunity. Everybody has an opportunity to come in and chase that wide receiver one and wide receiver two and down the line, because, you know, there is no defined guy coming in right now outside of, like I had mentioned, you assume it would be JoJo Phillips.
You had referenced Bear, and, you know, it was interesting when I had A-Rod on the show. So last year during during fall camp, I didn't know Bear well at all. When he transferred, I did some reading and saw that A-Rod wanted him out of high school. But I noticed really early on when I would listen to Aaron talk, I'm like, he likes this kid. You could tell. I wasn't sure who was going to win the job, but I kind of got a read on it early that A-Rod really liked him. And look, A-Rod now has this reputation with Zach and Jaron and these quarterbacks that he's coached. He's really kind of earned himself this reputation of this guy that can really develop quarterbacks. And I heard him say this week that Bear is the most accurate thrower of the ball that he's had of the group. That kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying. I mean, coaches just in general don't first of all, they don't want to single guys out because then that means they're not mentioning somebody else. But A-Rod, especially this camp this year, and granted, we're only a couple of weeks in, but he has been extremely positive and glowing about what Bear has shown him in this offense in year two. And look, last year he came in May, had a really short period of time to learn everything, and we saw what he was able to do as a true freshman. Now with a full off season, you've got a full spring ball, you've got now fall camp. I think he's showing not just his grasp of the offense, but a mastery of it as much as you can at such a young age. And, I was saying a minute ago, that's why I'm fascinated to know are we going to see a significant amount of passes, or more passes this year than we did last year? Because like I said, you've got LJ. And so do you take – and are we going to see Bear run as much anymore? I mean, those are all things that are part – and I hope that while maybe we don't see it as much, I certainly hope that it's not taken out of the playbook, because we saw last year Bear running up the middle is almost unstoppable. So he's the whole package. He's big. He's hard to tackle. His passing is improving day after day, and he's got the reigning Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year to hand the ball off to in front of one of the best offensive lines in the country.
Yeah.
It's good to be Bear Bachmeier.
Yeah, for sure. I've never been a believer, because we're dealing with the same conversation up here. Devin Dampier has now been very honest about his health a year ago. And so the conversation is like, well, do you still let him run the football? But obviously you do, because he's really good at that. And I feel the same way about Bear. Like, you want him healthy. I can remember people used to say, like, hey, you can't run Taysom as much as – and I'm like, why? He's running over and away from everybody. Like, when you're good at something as a coach, you have to let the player be good at the thing he's good at, Well,
and you have to let the opposition in the back of their mind know that they have to keep it – they have to be aware of it, because if they're not aware of it, he'll beat them every time, whether it's Bear, whether it's Dampier. I mean, if you get to the point where you're like, all right, well, they're throwing the ball so much, we're not going to worry about them running. Well, then you're probably going to give a touchdown right up the middle.
Yeah. Hey, what's the thought down there with Bear obviously cementing his place as the quarterback, and Ryder Lyons, who I believe is on a Spence Checketts mission call, getting home and potentially taking that job? Like, obviously Ryder's a huge recruit. What's that dynamic looking like?
Yeah, honestly, that's not even something that's been brought up. I mean, that's obviously down the road. So it has absolutely nothing to do with this fall camp or this season. I honestly have not even heard his name. I haven't even heard Lyons' name brought up in that context in terms of the quarterback situation. Bear is the guy. I know you haven't asked about this, but by all accounts, it does feel like Trayson Bourget is going to be the backup. That's at least the way it's looked. So you kind of go in assuming that's the case. But in terms of what the quarterback position looks like before or looks like down the road, that's not anything that I've heard anybody bring up. It's certainly going to be something interesting to follow, because you have such a highly touted quarterback that will be coming into the program. And Bear, I don't know what the future holds for him in terms of what his aspirations are, and how long he looks at college football, that kind of stuff. But it's not anything that's been brought up that I've heard down here.
Let me sneak in a couple basketball questions for you. I had forgotten that Jackson Kohler is actually brother Jackson Kohler, so we should start there because we're blessed. As you know, we're very blessed. This kid is a good player. 13 points, 9 boards a year ago at Michigan State. He has now officially entered the transfer portal. And look, I think Kevin has a good roster already. I don't know if they're going to be expected to be what they could have been last year if they stayed healthy. But what are you hearing about maybe Jackson Kohler heading down to BYU?
Well, as a BYU employee, I'm not allowed to mention names.
Oh, yeah.
So I will say that a certain former Michigan State player, it is at least being reported that he, and I want to get it right because I want to make sure that I give proper credit as to who it was that said it.
I saw it from
here.
Goodman. I saw it from Jeff Goodman.
Well, there was something today, and I just want to make sure that I get who said it. Basically, the BYU's meeting with him tonight. That there was a Zoom meeting with Kansas earlier today, and that he's meeting with BYU tonight. Obviously, he's in the transfer portal now. I know there were reports that BYU was the front runner for said player. As far as anything that I know, that's kind of stuff that's kept tight-lipped. So I'm going off the other reports. It certainly makes sense for a local LDS guy, if he wants one more, chance to play in college, to be able to come into a situation that you're familiar with. It's close to home, and it is of a massive need for the program. So it makes so much sense from my perspective. But, as we know, NIL is what it is, and we will see.
I don't know if you can talk about Keba Keita, but there are rumors surfacing about him as well. Look, I don't think he's an NBA player. I thought, like, when he was up here the first couple of times I saw him, I'm like, that kid is a beast. Like, all he needs to do is learn how to play basketball. And I don't know that he's ever going to, but he's big enough and he's athletic enough that he is a problem in college. He had some summer league stuff in the pro circuit, and it just didn't look like it was going to work. I think he can make money overseas. I don't think he's an NBA guy, but are there conversations about Keba coming back and playing for Kevin next year?
I've not heard anything about Keba coming back. I will tell you, I saw him at University Mall on Saturday.
Wow.
Does that count for anything?
No, that's a big sighting. Was he at Lids? What was he doing?
He was actually at where were we at? Foot Locker.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, he was going in, looking at some kicks, as the kids like to call it.
No, don't say kicks, Jason.
But yeah, no, we were at the mall doing a little, back to school shopping because we still have kids of that age, and yeah, I'd turn around and there's Keba Keita right there at the University Mall. But no, I have not heard anything about whether Keba or BYU is entertaining a reunion there. I've not heard that.
Did you have some bottomless steak fries at Red Robin while you were out and about?
Oh, man, if only. Trust me. We had actually gone out to Texas Roadhouse prior to. So we did have the essentially unlimited rolls, which I did not partake, because of carbs.
Oh, of course, obviously.
So yeah, but no, Red Robin. I mean, look, there are two places that the Shepherd family, if you can't decide where we're going to eat because people are, I don't like that or I don't like, there's always two places that we can always count on. One is Red Robin. The other is Texas Roadhouse. It just so happened Saturday was Texas Roadhouse.
There you go. Are you still squeezing into those medium shirts to make the pecs stand out?
It's the size that fits me. I'm just saying.
Okay. All right. Last thing. Starting five, Utah Jazz opening night. Go.
Nope. Yeah, all right. This is easy for me. Keontae, Darren, Ace, Lowry, Jaren.
Jaren Jackson at the 5?
Well, look, and here's my thought. Because everybody says, well, you just start Nurk because you can't play Jaren. Okay, well, you're going to have to play Jaren at the 5 some. You're going to have to. So I would rather have Nurk come off the bench and utilize his high post passing skills with the second unit and get them involved versus having the starters that don't need his help as much. So I'm willing to go the first couple of minutes of each game with Jaren at the 5 and then make Nurk one of your first subs, and then everybody, he can come in at the 5 and everybody then slides down. And whether it's Nurk coming in for Ace or coming in for Darren or whoever, that's what I would like to see. I just do not want to get into this situation where, and look, I understand San Antonio didn't start Harper last year and he was the number 2 pick, but we need to stop. We don't get number 2 picks very often. Darren Peterson needs to start from day one, and to me, the only way that happens because I think Ace has earned his starting spot as well. He needs to start. The only way this happens is if Nurk comes off the bench and Jaron starts at the 5. Doesn't have to play the entire quarter that way, but the first couple of minutes he can be at the 5, and then you can make the sub.
See, I'd bring Keontae in off the bench because what I agree with you about is that Darren and Ace have to start, and not just start. I want to see him play 30, 32 minutes right out of the gates.
Amen.
Amen indeed. Shep, you're the man. Thanks for the time. Be good, okay?
You bet. See ya.
Jason Shepard, old producer of the Bill and Spence program, now with our friends down at BYU Broadcasting, stops by today courtesy of our good friends at America First Credit Union. They've got a great offer for you, so listen up. You can make payday effortless by enrolling in direct deposit with America First. Get your paycheck deposited automatically into your account so you can access your money faster and avoid the hassle of manual deposits. Getting paid shouldn't take extra effort. Direct deposit ensures your money goes straight into your account automatically, giving you faster access to your funds and one less thing to worry about every payday. Convenience. Set it up once and enjoy automatic deposits every payday. Faster access. Getting access to your money sooner without waiting on manual deposits. Seamless experience. Easy setup through digital banking with a smooth, reliable process. Enroll in direct deposit today and make payday effortless. Set it up through online or mobile banking. Visit a branch or contact us for assistance. Not us, America First Credit Union. All right, we'll catch a break. Don't forget, in about 25 minutes from right now, Morgan Scally, who joined Sean O'Connell earlier today, we want to play that back for you. In about an hour from now, it's Jason Kreis. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show. Say goodnight at 6 on ESPN 700. I'm stumped. I have no idea. What are we doing? What is this?
I just kept the Metallica thing going.
Oh.
Cover, to be clear.
Okay.
Bob Seger's Turn the Page.
Okay.
But done by our friends of the show, Lars and Metallica.
Oh,
and
yeah,
such.
yeah. We should get Lars on. Reach out to Lars. Let's get Lars on the show.
I can try.
Did you ever go through a heavy metal phase? I went through a pretty. I like Metallica. I think they're very good.
Well, here's the deal. Metallica is good. They're very good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's my thing.
Okay.
My dad was a big Metallica fan, so I've actually been to a Metallica show.
Nice.
Virginia Tech, Enter Sandman. I'm all in. I wouldn't say I've gone through a phase, but as we've discussed in the show, I've been the designated driver or otherwise for many 80s rock, some metal-ish stuff.
Yeah.
Metallica, AC/DC, and such.
Metallica's excellent workout music.
Yeah.
It's good workout music. I went through. I was probably high school because then AC/DC, Thunderstruck, that whole thing. It was big for a little while. I'm a little stuck on. So Jason Shepard joined us last segment, and Jason, he tends to analyze BYU through the goggles, and that's all right. He's an employee down there, as he reminded us. So Sione Moa, who is their backup running back. First of all, that dude seems I would not want to tackle that young man.
No.
He is a beast. He's a bowling ball. He compared himself and LJ Martin to SpongeBob and Patrick. You've tweeted SpongeBob gifs at me. I don't know what they mean. So you're a SpongeBob expert, correct?
I don't know if I'm a SpongeBob expert.
So what does that mean? Does that mean they're good friends? Are SpongeBob and Patrick close friends?
SpongeBob and Patrick are best of friends.
They're best of friends.
But I don't know if it's ever a compliment if you're being compared to them, because they're best friends, but they're also like very notoriously airheads, especially Patrick.
Patrick is an airhead.
Oh, yeah. He's a doofus.
Patrick is a doofus?
But a loving one.
Okay, so who do you think he was referring to himself as, if that's not a great comp? Do you think he wants to be SpongeBob?
Probably. You always want to be the star.
But LJ is clearly the star.
Are you saying there's now drama in the running back room?
Yes.
Due to a SpongeBob reference?
The issues down at BYU, now they're on steroids. Okay, we've talked Kalani and Brian Santiago. Now we need to know, out of Sione Moa and LJ Martin, which one is SpongeBob and which one is Patrick?
Yeah, that's a tough one. From a physical standpoint, neither of them are SpongeBob. You'd be breaking those legs. But yeah, I mean, SpongeBob's the lead dog for sure.
So SpongeBob isn't necessarily physically intimidating.
No, he's a sponge.
Is he literally a sponge?
He's literally a sponge.
So yeah, you don't want to compare yourself
sponge
as a running back to a sponge. So it's because when Shep dropped the whole SpongeBob Patrick quote, all I could think about is like people down there must have eaten that up. They must have loved that. So basically what he's saying is they're best friends.
I think so.
All right. Glad we got that out of the way. So yeah, apparently the chemistry issues in BYU have taken a dark turn because now we're talking SpongeBob in addition to Patrick. Give me another SpongeBob SquarePants character.
Carl is the snail.
Okay, so who could
Sandy is the squirrel.
See, you know a lot about this stuff.
What the hell is his name? The old hermit next door.
Squidward?
Squidward's in there.
So we have Squidward, we have Carl, we have Sandy.
What is her name?
Would your buddy Bruce be the snail? Because he's not very fast?
No, Bruce is an athlete. Let me be clear.
Yeah. Those
good basketball player.
Yeah, those offensive linemen are like sneaky athletic. If we're just going to do the whole like SpongeBob comp game for BYU football, maybe we need to dig into it a little bit more because I don't really know much about these characters. I'm trying to think. I don't think my son was into SpongeBob very much. I don't know that I've ever watched a SpongeBob SquarePants episode. Is it on Netflix?
I don't know. I think it might be just before then. Bruce is definitely there's this big buff fish. Like that is he's just this big, no neck.
Okay. And
I don't
Bruce?
know his name, but that's clearly Bruce.
Bruce is the buff fish from SpongeBob.
I think it's Frank.
His name is Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, in any event, appreciate Shep's time today for the latest down at BYU. And, I wasn't expecting Jason to delve too deep into this situation that's kind of gone on down there. As we continue to discuss, here's the only dynamic. I was trying to think about this and make it topical for a radio show. And I've heard Sean talk about this kind of in the same way. The only way this becomes, and by this, I'm talking about the interviews Kalani himself has done, where he has indicated that there are things that he has been promised that have not been delivered. If I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. Results create narratives. And there are certain people that do this job in sports media that decide to create narratives that just come out of left field, like this whole NFL top 100 player list that they do every year. Patrick Mahomes was at 18. And so, of course, this morning, all the debate shows were talking about, will Patrick Mahomes have a chip on his shoulder? He probably doesn't even know that he's 18 on the list, So we're creating narratives. And because this entire situation has permeated throughout the course of the media ecosystem, and BYU, unlike BYU typically, has kind of lost control of the messaging. And the only person to blame here as far as the messaging is Kalani himself, because he's given the interview and he said the things out loud. Of course, I think there's plenty of, we talked about this with Gordon. I thought Gordon was really good on this yesterday, I should say. As far as what is actually going on behind the scenes, there are probably plenty of fingers that could be pointed depending on exactly what was promised and not delivered. And that continues to kind of be the white whale here, the thing that people are kind of wondering exactly what he's talking about. Is it facilities? Is it promises made to him? Is it promises made to his coaches? Gordon kind of gently alluded to the fact that there is some things that Kalani was promised himself that he wasn't given, like his situation. Time will reveal exactly what led this to becoming such a big story 2 weeks prior to the game. But the bottom line is this, back to the results. Results will create the narrative, and the results will dictate how this is talked about. I think BYU is like a 45.5-point favorite over Utah Tech. So we can kind of put that aside. If they come out looking a little bit sluggish against a lesser opponent, maybe that will be something. But I find their second game of the season very interesting. It is Arizona. It's in Provo. It's at LaVell Edwards Stadium. It's an afternoon kick, so that building will be on fire. But Arizona is one of these teams, okay? So as we've kind of discussed, it's difficult to identify a consistent narrative as it pertains to the coverage of Utah because there are expectations that are across the board. Brett Ciancia, Pick Six Previews, has Utah being undefeated going into the BYU game. Brett's a very smart college football guy, so that's not nothing for a guy that covers the Big 12 very well to expect Utah to roll into November the 7th when BYU is here in Salt Lake as an 8-0 football team. That would mean Utah was able to beat Houston at home. Iowa State is not thought to be much of anything. If you're mad at Kyle because he left for Ann Arbor and took some coaches and players with him, I would encourage you to Google search what Matt Campbell took with him to Penn State. Iowa State is thought to be dead in the water this year. That is Utah's Big 12 opener. I don't expect them to have any issue with that. A home win against Kansas to be expected on the road to Colorado. The real prize as far as the win that Utah could snag in route to being undefeated prior to the BYU game would be Houston at home. Because there are some people, including Stuart Mandel, that believe Houston is the third best team in this conference. So, you get the AP poll, you get the coaches poll. Utah's 21 in both. Joel Klatt releases his top 25. He has 5 Big 12 teams in his top 25. Utah's not one of them, leading Joel to make the statement on his podcast. I've always said death taxes in Utah football. What I meant was death taxes in Kyle Whittingham, because he has Michigan as a top 10 team, which is higher than I think most people have Michigan this year. So when it comes to, like a general consensus of what most people are expecting from Utah, I don't know that we can identify that. Stu's the only one that I've seen pick Utah winning less than 8 games. And as I said earlier with Sammy, that is my floor for them. 8 games to me is the floor. I can see Utah going 8-4 this year. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I can see Utah going 10-2 this year. If you really stretch, can you get to 11 wins? That to me is tough. If you get to 11 wins, you're going to have something to say about the Big 12 championship this year, which is what we all hope for, right? That's the hope. That's the expectation for some. I think that's a lofty expectation. If we use the term expectation, I have a hard time getting to the place where I would say I expect Utah football to win 11 games this year. I hope they do. I hope they win all their games, as we've talked about on the show. But when it comes to expectations for BYU, I think it's easier to identify. Almost everybody that I've seen write about the Big 12 Conference, almost everyone that I've listened to or watched talk about the Big 12 Conference has BYU either winning the Big 12 or finishing second. I'm sure there are other outlets out there because in this day and age, there are a ton of content creators. I have not seen BYU picked below second, I'll say, with any credible outlet that I've read, watched, or listened to. And that doesn't mean it's not out there. Maybe some of you have seen it. But if we are able to kind of identify a cul-de-sac where BYU lives this year in the Big 12, it is first or second. The coaches voted them to win the Big 12. Mandel picks them to win the Big 12. I think Klatt had them at second. I think he has Tech 1, BYU 2. That, to me, if we identify a consensus, feels like that's what it is. Tech 1, BYU 2, with some people believing BYU is going to win the Big 12. So if they come out and they look flawless against Utah Tech, which I think they probably will, due respect, but then the next week, Arizona goes into Provo and either upsets them or you have like a 20-19 win or whatever it is, which would be a weird final score. The noise will change as it pertains to whether or not what's going on right now is a real distraction. And back to the whole kind of unpacking the entire thing and landing on the one thing that I do believe could distract BYU, because ultimately this is about the players. This is about the guys that are between the lines. And as I've said before, there's, in my opinion, there isn't a sport, either college or pro, where I think it's more important to have the right coaches in place than college football. You hire the right guy, you're going to know pretty quickly, even if at times, as we talked about with Kyle and Kalani, struggles a little bit out of the gates, you kind of know that you have the guy and you want to ride with them and give them a few years. The old timeline used to be 4 years. If you feel like you have the right coach, you hire him and you give him 4 years, because that's 4 full recruiting cycles. Your first recruiting class, they're now seniors. Is that tried and true? No. I mean, Urban Meyer won with max players, right? At a very high level, so much so that he was only here a couple of years. It's not a tried and true thing, but generally speaking, back in the day, because of 4 recruiting classes, used to say, give the guy 4 years. And I believe Morgan signed a 5-year contract. And I don't know that there's anything that could happen this year that would make anybody question whether or not Morgan is the guy for this job. But ultimately, it does come down to the players executing the plays. There's no such thing as a great coach without great players. It does not exist. They're one and the same. People talk about like Jerry Sloan's best coaching season as that team where like Matt Harpring was their best player and they went 500. But they still went 500 because they didn't have good players. Jerry just took a group of guys that weren't very good and made them a borderline playoff team. Which coaching job a few years ago where they won 8 games with all of those injuries talked about as one of his best coaching years. You have to have great players and you have to have them healthy. But finally, you have to make sure they're not running into these distractions that seem to be permeating throughout this conversation regarding Kalani and Brian Santiago and the administration of BYU. The only thing that I've been able to land on that could be a distraction for the players is if they're truly not being compensated the way their peers are. I'm sure they all love Kalani, and I'm sure they all love the coaching staff, and I'm sure they want the coaching staff to be taken care of, and I'm sure they want Kalani to be taken care of. In Gordon's piece for the Tribune, he wrote about the fact that the football team has to leave the indoor practice facility for intramurals. I can't imagine how annoyed Kalani is with that. They have to end practice early so a bunch of 5'7" dudes named Chad can play soccer. Like, are you kidding? That has to be rectified yesterday. I guess the practice facility is a bit of a mess. The outdoor facility is kind of banged up a little bit. So there are some things with rumors that are permeating about that dynamic, right? But when it comes to the bright lights, when it comes to game day, when it comes to playing in front of your fans and playing a game, the only thing I can kind of land on that would be a legitimate distraction is if whether or not these players are talking to their peers around the country and they're saying, wait, you're making what? And it's like double or triple what they're making. Because while a lot of people are still uncomfortable with the fact we're paying college kids, you better get comfortable with it because it's here to stay and it's not going anywhere. And it's not hard to draw a parallel between what you do for a living and what they do for a living. If you're in a job where you feel like you are delivering every day, you are doing the best job possible, and your employer refuses to pay you market value, how motivated are you to keep doing that job? Just ask yourself. If you've ever been in that spot where you feel like you're bringing value, yet your value is not seen by your employer and you're not fairly compensated as far as what your peers are making in your space, that's going to distract you from doing the best job you can every single day. And you're only going to be motivated for so long if you're not compensated the way you feel like you should be compensated. That's the only, and again, I'm not operating off of any inside information here. Max Olson did some good reporting for ESPN to give us a general outline of what it costs to have a top-shelf P4 quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive lineman, edge rusher, cornerback, safety. He went through the entire deal. So if you look at that list, and there are some players down there that are seeing what their peers are making and they're not close to it, that could distract this football team. Other than that, if it really is like, hey, we need new sod, or tell these dorks they can't play lacrosse until we're done finishing football practice, things like that can be figured out. And the football team will be fine. I'm sure Kalani's doing a good job of insulating them the best he can anyway. Nothing new really over the past 48 hours after this thing kind of exploded on the scenes. All right, Morgan Scalley joined Sean earlier today. It was a really good conversation. Of course, those two are former teammates, and Morgan is awesome, so we're going to let you hear from Morgan coming up on the other side. It's time to start thinking about football, and we're only a few weeks away from the best time of the year. Now's the time to prep your field. Make sure you're using IFA Step 3 for the weeks ahead when the weather is still hot, but as the dog days of summer give way to fall, it's time to start thinking about Step 4, our fall and winter lawn fertilizer. Either way, you can find more by visiting ifa.coop online. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Morgan Scalley and Jason Christ. That's your 4 o'clock hour. So keep it here on ESPN 700. See, this is more of like a Metallica classic vibe than the one you played like a ballad last segment.
They got a few of those.
I do have some ballads. Playing some Metallica. Our guy Shep joined us earlier. We got Morgan ready to roll?
Yeah.
All right. Want to let you guys know that Camp Scally is underway for Utah football. For the best coverage of Utes fall camp, keep it tuned in to Sean O'Connell and this show, The Drive with Spence Checketts, every day, or visit ESPN700sports.com. Camp Scally is brought to you by CenXL JBR, Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, Big O Tires, Sound Warehouse, and your Utah Toyota dealers on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Just in case you missed it from earlier today, here's Morgan Scally with Sean O'Connell.
Morgan Scally, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
What's up, brother? Good practice today. Just got off the field. Guys are eating, getting ready for meetings, but a ton of progress.
What does progress look like from a practice-to-practice standpoint at this juncture of camp, where there are a couple of bumps and bruises and the enthusiasm of the season being back has started to maybe shake a little because you're sore and all that kind of stuff? What are you looking for when it comes to that progress, Morgan?
Well, a lot of it, I mean, you're not installing at this point. It's all operational cleanliness. You know, you just want to be disciplined, lining up fast. Offense dictates the tempo. Defense is flying to the football and, you know, just teaching everything you can about situational football, situational awareness. We can't get enough of that, you know, particularly with as many new guys as you have. But right now it's just about cleaning things up. And but I honestly like where we're at right now.
Are your position battles where you have them as close to resolution as you'd like them to be at this point?
We're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there. We've had some bumps and bruises along the way at certain positions, and that can cause some delay in finding out, you know, whether guys can do it or not. We still are going to continue to practice physical. The live tackling stuff is intermittent in the practices that we have. You're never going to see a large dose scrimmage. But, you know, we got to find out who can tackle, who can break tackles. And, but I would say we're probably 85% there when it comes to, you know, deciding who the starters are.
Can we have I know you've been asked about the offensive line a lot. I'm so intrigued by the safety room. I know it's a position group that's near and dear to your heart, having played it and coached it for so long. And you've got talent there. I think there's at least 4 guys that I could see as kind of every down starters. How is that shaping up?
Well, it's good because it's a good problem to have. You got the beauty of that position room is you've got guys that could play the nickel position. And so teams that try and create issues with more athletic tight ends, you're fine because you've got, you know, that's who the safeties normally covered. But once you get into 11 personnel and 10 personnel, and maybe you're asking a safety to cover a slot receiver, you know, I feel really confident in Jackson Benny being able to do that. Rabbit Evans, Tillman, Nate Tillman's come a long way as well. So you're able to play in those 3 safety packages, much like we did, would have been with Sione Vaki and RJ Hubert and Cole Bishop. So, you know, that's where we need to go. That's where we need to go. Plus it allows us to blitz and do some things with those guys. So really pleased with the safety room. You talk about Nate Ritchie and his experience and the snaps he's given us as well. And it's a really good group.
Have there been any surprises? Any guys that weren't on your radar necessarily is going to be needing, you know, reps, and we got to get this guy some snaps that have emerged in fall camp?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's been good to get Monica Carvalho back at the slot receiver position, just because he didn't participate in spring because of his injury, and. You know, he's one of those, when you talk about separation, it's, you know, a lot of that is how well you run your routes, and very good route runner, very quick, good hands. Tobias Merriweather's a guy last year that, didn't get a lot of production, but has shown some very good things in fall camp. And, you got Zip. We got a good amount of wide receivers. It's really good to have that depth there. Depth at linebacker, depth at D end, tight end is a spot where we're still working some things out. But I love Benny and Will Money. You got your rhinos that provide some versatility and allowing you to get a little bit physical, but also they're athletic enough they can cause some issues. I would say Matiaki Halu's probably the biggest surprise at camp. Not that we didn't think that he could do it at the running back position, just he's shown so much in the ability to catch the ball, run with physicality, and pretty good vision too. So maybe Halu's the answer for that.
Interesting. Morgan Scally, Utah head football coach, is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, just off the practice field and obviously in the heat of camp right now. How has the culture of this particular roster in your first year as a head coach kind of shaped up through camp? It feels like that, you had spring ball, obviously an off-season program, and now as you get closer to install next week and things like that, are you finding that the leaders you expected to be leaders are there? Is there somebody that wasn't penciled in that way that is more of a vocal person? The overall kind of like vibe and culture of this particular version of Utah football, what does it look like?
Well, I'm pleased with what I've seen in terms of the progress of the offense. The defense has kind of known this culture for a while. But to see the buy-in from the offense and, Wayshawn Parker's one that wasn't much in terms of, being a vocal guy last year. He was a newcomer. But man, has he stepped up and practices the right way. He's willing to call people out, but he's also willing to do that because everyone knows he's taking care of his business. So love what I've seen out of him, and it's just the offense buying into team football and the fact that one guy gets the ball, boys, and what are you going to do? It's like basketball. 80% of the game, you're not going to have the ball. So be great at that 80%, whether it's setting picks, whether it's going to work the boards, whatever it is. On the offense, you can kind of tell if a wide receiver is a me guy. If when the ball's thrown, he just turns and watches. Like, don't watch football, play football. If you want to watch football, come stand by me on the sideline. Play football. Go block. Get out in front of people. Go do the team thing. Celebrate together. So that's what's been fun, is to see that showing up more and more every day.
How do those conversations go when it's just you and especially your offensive coaches? You just said it. There's only one football. And when we look at this roster and what we know about it, it's like, man, I think there's a bunch of weapons here, and you probably want to get the ball into everyone's hands at some point during these games. That's not the most realistic game plan, I imagine, sometimes. So how do those conversations go with Kevin McGiven and these position coaches as camp progresses? Like, hey, before we decide whether or not we're going to give it to him against Idaho, let's see what he can do tomorrow in practice. How does that go?
Well, you're looking for, discipline and consistency. Are they consistent practice after practice after practice? Anyone can have a good practice, and you put as much stress and pressure on them as possible just to find out who those guys are, who's going to catch it in a pressure situation, who's going to do what you ask, who's going to, when it's on two, who's going to jump, can you hold your water? So, Kevin, his staff's awesome. So much of culture is about everyone being on the same page, being unified in your message and holding people accountable to it. So very pleased with that group, a bunch of good teachers. And like I said, we've got some good players.
How are you different during this camp, your first as the head man versus, the defensive coordinator, the position coach, Morgan Scally, during a fall camp?
Well, you just don't hear me a lot. you were at practice last year. I mean, Scally's always yelling at something.
If I'm not hearing Scally at practice, it feels like it's not a Utah practice.
Yeah, so something's up. Yeah. So no, it's much more. Is practice going the way? It's how we're doing things. Are we running the ball? Are we running from drill to drill? Are we being efficient with our time? Practicing the right way? Yeah, it's a different role for me. I'm still, very anal about the details and about, us behaving the way we've asked these kids to behave, living our culture, but you just don't, you don't hear me. I'm not screaming as much. Probably better for my voice box.
Who has taken that on then? There's got to be somebody out there who if I were able to, you practice when I'm on air. So
it was me. It's me and Shaw, right? Those are the two that you're usually always hearing and going crazy. But I tell you what, Mark Yatawaya, he's picked up the torch.
Okay, I like that.
That's him and Shaw. I would say would be the two that you're always hearing.
Okay. We're efforting. I'm trying to get your strength and conditioning coach, Steve Saunders, on the show as soon as possible because everybody that we have talked to, players, other reporters that are coming on to share their thoughts of what they see at practice, there is a constant attention being paid to body composition, especially with your big guys, your offensive and defensive linemen. And everyone's making comments about your own physique too, which is hilarious. I mean, you're shredded right now. I don't know how you pulled that off. I need to get on the Morgan Scally program. I don't know what peptides you're on.
I'm not shredded. A lot of cookie butter chip ice cream from Blacksmith, just so you know.
I don't know if that works out that way for the rest of us. But in all seriousness, right, the strength and conditioning foundation that has been so important to Utah football for so long, it's a big change with somebody new and a different voice, and it was a big story over the offseason, and the players are speaking very positively about it from an injury standpoint and from just a performance standpoint. Are the results what you expected them to be when you made the change?
100%. Yeah, I knew what I wanted going in, and there's always difficult decisions that you have to make, but I knew that Steve spoke my language when it came to my vision is the strength conditioning and how we train and everything being position specific and making us better football players in the weight room, not necessarily better weightlifters. Everything we do has to have a purpose, has to have an answer to the why. And if that answer is, well, that's just the way we've always done it. Well, nope, that's wrong. That we've got to be on the cutting edge. We've got to be, are we doing the best thing for these kids? And so Steve came in and, I'm a believer because I've been doing it. I wanted to make sure that I got in the weight room and obviously Weddle's endorsement was huge, but just the fact that we had other NFL guys with Inoke and Luther and Jordan, and all these guys were like, yes, this is, he's speaking our language. This is what we need. And the results speak for themselves in terms of the body composition, in terms of our guys feeling stronger, feeling healthier. And, but it's also the buy-in from the players, attacking the weight room, not just as a checklist item of, okay, this is what I do as a football player, but how is the weight room translating to me being a better football player? And if you can see that and see how this specific lift or this specific technique is making me a better football player, well, then you get more buy-in.
How is Devin Dampier different in his second camp as the projected starter versus last year?
Well, I think he's a much more aware of eyes are on him, much more aware of how he behaves matters, in terms of, if we're asking everyone's held to the standard. It's not just, okay, you're the starting quarterback and you're the highest paid guy we got. Like, you got to do what you want to do. No, you live the culture just like we're asking everyone else to live the culture. And if you don't see it that way, then you don't understand leadership and, how culture is created. So that's what I'm proud of Devin, is that he's bought into that. You look at the things that he does off the field with our players, inviting players to come out to his place, the team building stuff. Like, he's very aware of his role on this team, and that all eyes are on him.
This is going to be my last question because I can be guilty of taking up too much of your time. I think it's important. I don't know if it's something that I just got used to as a player who wasn't this guy or observing. When you go out and you watch a practice, even when it's a bunch of great players, and I think you've got a bunch of really good ones, you can pick out the one or two or three usually, even as a casual observer, where you're like, that's a different animal. That's a dog right there. That's the alpha in this group. Do we know who those guys are yet for Utah football? Like the Devin Lloyd, the Spencer Fano, the outlier from the outliers, if that's the right way to say it.
I think we're still in the process of finding. I would hate to just like start listing names and all of a sudden guys are like, well, what about me? But one guy I'm just extremely excited about, just because he's put the work in, and he's, as Marshawn Lynch would say, all about that action, is Wayshawn.
Okay.
I cannot wait to see what this guy does. He's lifting the right way. He's eating the right way. He's practicing the right way. So I'm excited for his season.
Well, we're very excited for the season overall. I appreciate you giving us some time today. I know it's very, very busy. We'll cut you loose now, Coach, and we'll see you up there in just over a couple of weeks.
OC, you're the man, brother. Can't wait.
Did he say cookie butter ice cream?
Of some sort.
What was the store? We should give the store some love.
Blacksmith?
Blacksmith?
That's what Morgan shouted out, I believe.
I like
Not sponsored, just...
Well, I mean, if Morgan likes it, we should give him some love. Because I'll tell you what, Morgan's right. Like, the cookie butter ice cream at Trader Joe's is beyond ridiculously addicting. It's hard to put down. It's one of those things where, you buy whatever the size they come in, and you're like, I'm going to pace myself with this stuff. Then you get home from work, you do the dinner thing, try to cook at home most nights, and then one bite, and you're like, this is going to be tough. I have to I have to pace myself. I can finish an entire whatever the container is.
And regardless of what the container is, I'll eat the whole thing. If you
one sitting? If
you let me get a little loose with the ice cream. Oh yeah.
What's the preferred D. Porter Larson ice cream flavor?
I love me a sorbet. So you give me a lemon sorbet, and
a sorbet.
I will down as much lemon sorbet as you put in front of me.
It's not ice cream. That's a palate cleanser.
I know. But if we're going like specifically ice cream,
yes,
I'm a big mint chocolate chip guy.
Okay.
I love me some cookie dough ice cream's good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really just pretty vanilla. Like specifically, get a vanilla ice cream, maybe a topping or two, but pretty plain. I like the actual ice cream taste.
It's got it. Okay. If it's going to be vanilla ice cream, though, it has to be like top shelf quality vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, it's got to be decent.
Preferred topping.
I like just a drizzle chocolate. Maybe caramel.
You're like an ice cream snob. Lemon sorbet is the answer. That's the answer right out of the gates.
That's the most commonly consumed frozen snack of mine, yes.
Where do you get lemon sorbet?
The Smith's actually has like a good, it's probably their own.
Okay.
Good deal on some lemon sorbet.
So is it's Blacksmith?
Here's the deal. Lemon sorbet doesn't even have to be like a sorbet. It's just frozen lemonade. Like if you ever see those Minute Maid frozen lemonades,
those are good.
At the movie theater.
Those are good.
That's all I need.
So is the ice cream store called Blacksmith? Is that what it's called?
Morgan's ice cream store, yeah.
He owns the ice cream store?
No. His ice cream store of choice, apparently.
Are they local?
Mill Creek, I think. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to have to try it because cookie butter ice cream is wildly addicting. Special thanks to Keeler, Paul, whoever made it happen. And Paul, we know you're listening, okay? So thank you for making it happen. And Paul, while we have your attention, look at me, Paul.
Again?
Yep. Paul, YouTube, ESPN 700. I'm looking at you. The red light went on. Let's do the thing with the interviews where we eliminate distractions every week so we can, once again, bring the quality sound from Utah practices of players and coaches to the masses. Also, I'd like to reiterate my demands as a media member this year. Completely unfettered access to the entire facility. I'd like a steak sandwich for dinner while you feed the other media members whatever they get. I'd like the steak sandwich, ribeye, medium. Don't.
Just on game day?
Can I demand a steak sandwich like every day?
That's what I was wondering.
Okay, Paul, we've upped the ante. I'm going to be stopping by the facility every night around 6:30 or 6 or 7. Yep. I'd like a ribeye steak sandwich medium. Do you have any demands? Because we know Paul's listening and now he's watching. Do you have any demands while we have Paul's eyes?
Steak sandwich does sound good.
2 steak sandwiches, Paul. Every night, football
Medium
facility.
Rare.
Medium rare for Porter, even though he's faking it. No one likes medium rare meat.
I like rare meat, just to be clear.
No one does. It's a facade. It's like a stick your chest out and I'm a man and I like a steak that's barely cooked. No one really likes it.
No. I wouldn't be doing that in the privacy of my own home if that were the case.
Okay. I don't believe it. Next time you cook a steak, I want a picture. Send me a picture. Okay, I want you to cut it. I want to see the middle. I want to see what it looks like.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. All right. Reminder, ESPN700sports.com is where you go if you miss any sound from Utah practice. We will catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, it is official. Xavier Gozo lives in South London. He is a member of Crystal Palace. RSL's in action in about 3 hours from right now. Jason Christ stops by, so keep it here on ESPN 700. RSL back in action tonight, 7:30, America First Field. The opponent is FC Dallas. Game can be seen on Apple Television. And RSL is looking like their 15th straight MLS sellout. Xavier Gozo lives in South London now. Our next guest is currently the president of soccer operations for Real Salt Lake and the Utah Royals, but he spent some time in Dallas once upon a time, scoring a cool 91 goals in 247 appearances for the Dallas Burn. Jason Kreis, happy Wednesday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Spence. How are you?
Oh, we got a docile, calm Jason Kreis today. I'm good, Jay. Do you ever have any emotions, memories when you guys played Dallas, or does that seem like a different life now?
A different life for sure. I can remember the first couple of years playing here and having to play against them. That was like a surreal experience for sure. The first time we played there, we played against them. We played there. I actually thought, I trying to look back on it, it was like I was in some sort of weird nightmarish dream. But after you got past that a couple of years, and then certainly in coaching, there wasn't a whole lot of extra emotion for them anymore.
Are you aware that you scored the first goal in Dallas Burn history?
I am aware of that, yes.
Do you remember the goal?
I do remember the goal. I remember it very well. It was against the Kansas City Wizards at the time, and they had come to play us. In the first game that we played, it was against San Jose. It ended up in a 0-0 draw. In the second game we played against Kansas City, and the goal was basically a tap-in assisted by a good friend of mine and also a former coach of mine from Duke University, John Kerr.
Are you aware that you were the first American-born player to be named league MVP?
Are we going to continue this line of questioning?
We'll get to the other stuff, Jay. We got some time. I'm just wondering if you're aware of your own accomplishments.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm also aware that I was the first ever goal scorer for Real Salt Lake. Was that the next question?
Nope. Are you aware that you're the first player to have a 15-goal, 15-assist season in league history?
Yes, but it was very early days, so that wasn't saying much.
Why are you not giving yourself some credit? I'm trying to build you up, Jason. I know the delicate ego I'm dealing with. I'm trying to build you up.
I appreciate that, Spence. I wish there was more people like you around me in my life.
Okay, I'll work on that. What's the most memorable goal you ever scored?
Oh, maybe not the best goal I ever scored, but it was certainly a good one. And it obviously has to be memorable for very obvious reasons. It was the 100th goal that I scored here at Rice-Eccles Stadium, left-footed volley. To take that record was a pretty special one and a pretty high-quality goal, and assisted by some people that I, obviously enjoyed playing with and are still good friends with. So good memory, that one for sure.
When was your first backflip celebration?
That's a strange story because I had never done that before playing professionally and scoring my first Major League Soccer goal. I don't really know why I did it. It was, like I said, it wasn't something that I practiced or something I thought about. It just sort of happened, and then once I did it, it seemed like something that I should continue and sort of became known for.
Do you remember your last backflip celebration?
Oh, man. I do not. I do not remember the last goal I scored, Spence. Do you have that somewhere? I do not have that one in front of me, but I will do a little digging, and maybe we'll end the interview with that. Do you ever play anymore? Do you ever get out, do a little indoor? Do you play at all? Oh, man, I don't. Probably because I had 2 ACL surgeries, and I feel like if I was to try to play soccer right now, for sure, I would re-tear my left ACL. It is very loose already. Even the thought of trying to get out there and play makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, let's not do that. But thinking about this interesting dynamic of your playing days and now where the league is currently, how would you characterize, like when you're analyzing talent, when you're watching these games, how would you kind of articulate just the way the talent has changed in this league juxtaposed to when you were playing?
I think without a doubt, it is miles and miles higher than when I was playing. I feel like, with my limited physical capabilities, I'm not even sure that I would have been a regular and consistent starter in the league now. I feel like the level of physicality, the speed, the strength have all gone up. The technique, the tactical awareness have all gone really, really high up. So yeah, I've always been bullish about the development of the league and the development of the play, and I think it's miles and miles onwards from then, and I think we still have some steps to go as well.
The official MLS website lists you as 5'8". Is that accurate?
I think 5'7" .75" is what I was officially measured at a long time ago.
Are you aware that you do not have a picture on your LinkedIn profile?
I did not know that. I thought for sure there was one.
No, you're active on LinkedIn, but you do not have a picture on your profile. I mean, I think that's something we need to rectify.
Are you sure that's a real profile, or is that perhaps similar to a Twitter profile that was done a long time ago by the Checketts boys?
I do not know what you're referring to. Wait a second. I just signed in. You do have a picture. That's a good picture of you. Okay. Yeah, that's a good picture of you. Okay, we've got the LinkedIn thing settled. All right, Jay, you made it awkward, so now we have to move on rapidly. It is official that Xavier Gozo lives in South London now, and now that we have the news, I just want you to kind of walk us through this whole deal now that it is official. I know we have been unable to kind of talk about it on the record, but we can now. How did this all go about? How are you feeling about it now?
We obviously feel like it's a big win for our club. It is not without its bitterness, of course, because it comes in the middle of the season, and we think that it's hurt us from a competitive perspective. So that the bitterness aside, it's a massive win. I mean, it's a massive win for so many entities, really. Obviously, a massive win for our academy, massive win for our Monarchs because he played games there, a massive win for our coaching staff that has worked so hard to develop players like this, and that is a big emphasis of what our club does. We place a big emphasis on developing players, so there's just so many people that can feel like this is a huge win. Then it goes on. I think it goes on to the support staff, obviously. I think the community relations staff, the folks that put him out there and marketed him and made him somebody that people were talking about in the league, I think they have credit to take. I think the ownership group has credit to take. The people that have invested the money in our academy over the past 4 or 5 years have big credit to take. I think our community has a lot of credit to take for the fact that this kid was born and raised in our community, in our state. So, everybody that's been involved in the development of Xavier Gozo has credit to take, and we should all be extremely happy about that because it is a massive win.
I was curious to get your take, and I asked Kurt this earlier, like when you first saw Gozo, when you first were able to kind of get your eyes on him and start to maybe see the potential in him, did you see this potential, or is this evolution even something that shocks you?
I think it's come faster than I probably thought, but I absolutely would say that I felt like this was going to be a big, big player for us at Real Salt Lake. The first time I was really paid attention to Gozo was at the U18 Academy playoffs in 2024. So that would have been the spring of 2024. And at that time, I came back saying, I think this guy should be playing in our first team now. Because I thought that he was so good around the goal in that tournament, maybe specifically in that tournament, just his decision-making and his finishing ability around the goal were something that we were missing, I thought, in our first team. So I have been a big fan of his. I have been pushing, as all of us have in the front office, to maybe push his development along as fast as we can. And we obviously were the benefactors of that for a year and a half in our first team. But you wouldn't expect, a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have expected that we were going to be selling him for a record-breaking transfer fee, no doubt. But I do think we all thought at some point we would.
Want to be delicate with this question. Was this a consensus choice? And, Steve Starks was on the show a month ago and gently alluded to the fact that you guys wanted to hold on to him. And I understand the nature of the business. And when the number is the number, you kind of have to do the thing. And there's the player's desire as well. But I know you guys are very collaborative over there with you and Kurt and Jason and Pablo and ownership. Was this a consensus in the room? Like, yeah, we got to do this.
I think ultimately, any decision we make, typically we're all going to have different points of view. But when we make those decisions, we're walking out of those rooms and saying, absolutely, we're going to support this. It was, what I would say is I think a lot of things had to come together almost perfectly to put us in a position where we would even consider it. And I think those things obviously came together. First and foremost is the price, right? But then there's also the idea of how badly the player wanted it. The timing of it, I think, then became critical because, for him to go over in the winter is a lot different than him going over in the summer. At first, we never expected that Crystal Palace would take the player in the summer. We had thought that they were just, that they would work with us and want to take him in the winter. But then they had a new coach come in and who wanted him there now. And so it's just a lot of things I think came together to say, this was the right time and the right decision for Real Salt Lake.
I have been searching for answers to the Jason Kreis mentality forever. You were a psychology major at Duke. That makes so much sense. I didn't know that until just now.
You just saw that on my LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, and now everything, all of this trauma I've experienced with you for 24 years is now coming together. It makes complete sense.
The people around me actually say the exact opposite. They understand that I'm almost like a certified psychologist, the way that we speak around here. Oh,
okay. Well, again, it's just the picture is crystallizing. But anyway, back to the things that are important. Ultimately, Pablo, after the tie against Minnesota, gave a pretty passionate plea for reinforcements. And it's not just Gozo leaving. You guys are banged up, too. So as we've talked about throughout this entire process, I think fans get it, but they also want the funds reinvested into talent. What can you share with us?
As do we. Now I think it's about trusting a process, right? And this is the way that I'm looking at this, and this is the way I feel strongly about this, is that a year ago, we essentially looked at the recruitment process and the recruitment department and took a good long look in the mirror and recognized that we needed to do some things differently. We implemented some different processes. We added a bunch of data analysis. We added a couple people to a staff, hired a head of recruitment, and what we did was we reaped the rewards of that in the winter. Every player that we signed this winter and added to our team to AT has been a tremendous success. And so now we are saying to ourselves, we need to trust that same exact process. We need to trust the decision makers to add the players that we need in this summer window. So we are working very diligently to make some additive signings, and we are looking for important players. Obviously, we've added Sabalab Janitze already. I think there's an announcement, if it hasn't already been made yet, that we're signing a young central midfield player from Orlando in a trade. And so we're making a few additive things like that. But I do also expect and would expect that we will make some good signings here in the next couple of weeks to add to this group. To take up. Essentially, we're looking for players to take up the contributions that we now have lost with Xavier Gozo's departure.
Are you able to comment on this young player from Orlando? I'm learning this in real time now.
He's a central midfield player. He's young. He played in the U20 this prior U20 qualification with the U.S. We think he's a high potential player that can step in and play minutes for us for the second half of the season.
And is this pending paperwork or is it official?
Everything's been agreed to. It's just waiting for the official stuff to be approved by the league.
Got it. Health update. I know Zach left against Minnesota, so you have to add him to the list. Where are we at with the group now?
Yeah, that's been really, really unfortunate because I think Zach, in a couple of games that he was able to start after the Gozo departure was phenomenal. We were really, really pleased with that. But now he's picked up a longer-term hamstring injury and will be out for what looks like 6 to 8 weeks. Justin Glad continues to be injured without a real timeline as to when he'll return. Emeka Eneli is actually on the mend and is supposed to start in full training, I believe, next week. So that'll be a really nice addition. And then RS Piol is also a player that tore his Achilles early in the season and is looking like he may be able to come back here towards the end.
I wanted to ask you about Victor Olatunji and Dom Markzuk and kind of where we're at with these two pieces that were added with some expectations that I think it's only fair to say haven't been lived up to. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think both players actually had some real high levels of contributions early days when they came in. And both of them looked like they were, going to track well and needed some time for adjustment and would continue an upward trend. But I would say that also both of those players have had, a bit of a downward trend in the first half of the season. There's still guys that we haven't written them off. There's still guys that we are continuing to work with. Our coaching staff has shown time and time again that they can develop players and that they can bring players out of doldrums and get them to a good place. Pablo Ruiz, I think, is case in point of that. So that's a player that came in the Leagues Cup and started 2 games and was absolutely outstanding. So, we like we said, we place a high level of emphasis on development and character, and so we think there's still a chance with both those guys.
This is only a rumor, so you may not even be able to touch it, but Sergey Solins has been targeted by a few clubs, and obviously he's been so bright for you guys, and understanding that the ecosystem is the ecosystem and the business is the business. What can you share about the potential of maybe moving Sergey on?
We've had offers for 3 to 4 of our players this summer. And as I said, our opinion at the beginning and going into the summer was that we didn't want to move anybody. And that sentiment is still very strongly there. With him in particular, I would say that I think there will be some news coming that should make all the fans feel really good about that situation here in the next couple of days to a week.
Ooh, okay. I like that. Before we get to tonight, Leon is the opponent for the quarterfinals. And you guys are playing this game in Colorado. Can you help us understand how this came about?
Yeah, obviously the club has made a pretty strong push over the last couple of years to do more with our building, to try to bring in more revenue with events. And I think we have to consider ourselves fortunate to get a guy like Noah Khan for a concert. And that decision needs to be made, like a year out. And so the decision was made a year ago to have this concert. I think that the whole thing sold out within the matter of like 30 minutes. And so from a revenue perspective, that has to be seen as a massive win for our club. The unfortunate part is we couldn't probably have foreseen that we would advance in the Leagues Cup and then not further to advancing, but have the ability to actually host a game. So, when you consider the Leagues Cup, and people probably don't have enough detail here, but there's 18 MLS teams and 18 Liga MX teams that enter the tournament, and only 4 MLS teams and 4 Liga MX teams advance to the quarterfinals. So the odds are very slim for that to happen. But as luck would have it, Murphy's Law, we end up advancing, and we end up having the ability to host the game, and boom, we've got the concert the same night. And so we looked at a lot of different options to try to move the concert, try to look at an alternate venue, and we just couldn't come up with a good solution. So the next best option was to take the game to Colorado, in the hopes that we could still, be in the altitude, and have the ability, hopefully, for a lot of our fans to make the 7 or 8 hour drive over there and support us.
Tell us about the opponent. Obviously, if you win this game, you do advance, and that would put you in a spot to lock up one of those spots in the big club tournament, which we're all hoping for. But what are you up against in Leon?
Yeah, Leon is an interesting case because they came in, they finished first in the seedings in the tournament for Liga MX teams, where we finished 4th, so 4th place first. But in their league right now, they're only 3 or 4 games in, and they're towards the bottom of the table. So it's a team that's done well in the 3-game sprint in the tournament, but potentially is maybe, I think, an opportunity for us. And so we will look at it as exactly like that. We will go and put our absolute strongest lineup out there to play against them. And this, we think already, Spence, to be honest, this is a massive statement for us to even make the quarterfinals. And we believe that we have a really good opportunity to push past that and make the semis. And then if we win the semis or lose the semis, actually, we win 2 out of the next 3 games, and we qualify for CONCACAF Champions Cup.
All right, before we set you loose, you do have a game in hand on Dallas. You have 2 games in hand on LAFC. Vancouver is running clear at this point with 37 points. But A little bit of a slide, Jay. 28 points now. That's 7th in the West. Dallas is 5th, sitting on 30. Tonight's kind of like a sneaky big game, isn't it? Give us a little preview.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's sneaky at all. I think this is a massive game. I think we have had a little bit of a slip after the World Cup break. I think we recognize and acknowledge that. But our home form has been absolutely fantastic. We also had the unfortunate situation where I think we slipped up and dropped 2 points against Minnesota to tie that game so late. I really felt like the 3 points were in our hands, and we didn't do just quite enough at the end of that game to make sure we won it. So, we expect an emotional response from our players. We expect the players to show that they understand this is a big, big opportunity for us tonight to win this game and to move in front of Dallas again with that game in hand.
Jay, thanks for the time, man. Good luck tonight, and we'll see you soon, okay?
You're very welcome. Thanks, as always, for having me, Spence.
All right, Jason Christ, President of Soccer Ops for Real Salt Lake. Big game tonight. It is FC Dallas, 7:30 kick, America First Field. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program is next on ESPN 700. All right, wrapping up the show. Final segment of the show for the day. A lot going on. A couple of weeks away from Utah football. Couple of weeks away from BYU and Utah State. Week 0 gets going next week. So college football is back. BMW Championship in the world of professional golf. Scott O'Neill had a press conference today. Who is Scott O'Neill, you ask? He's the CEO of the Live Tour. and he is being defiant, claiming they're going to continue on. But they have canceled their team championship, and apparently they owe millions of dollars to creditors. But the BMW Championship features the top 50 golfers in the world. That will kind of get going tomorrow, so some fun golf ahead as well. And we're going to blink. It's going to be time for the NBA season. It's training camp for the Jazz and the NBA right around the corner. Always excited to bring you the best NBA coverage in the market. So there you go. All right, Porter, that's it. I'm out. I'm done. I've had it. You can take this job and shove it.
Okay.
For the
I'll
next
take it.
For the next 2 days. You are taking it for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
My friends at Real Salt Lake, I take one road trip with them a year. So I will be in Orlando with our local soccer club for the next few days. I'll be back on Monday. But you got Tony Parks along for the ride, right? Next couple of days.
I know Bowler's going to stop by, Kyle Bonagura. We'll kind of go all over the map.
Zach Moss, Eric Weddle. You get all the former Utes.
Maybe Zach.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'd be cool if he joined the show when I hosted it.
I think he did, like a month ago.
Yeah, that's fair. So Porter will have you taken care of over the next couple of days. I will be back on Monday. Would you care to tease the program tomorrow? Do you know exactly what's going down?
Bowler will stop by tomorrow. Tony and I will handle most of the rest. If we add anything, it'll likely be pretty Utes-centric with countdown to kickoff within 2 weeks starting tomorrow.
There you go. Yeah, it's right around the corner, man. Game day is here. Reminder, Utah-Idaho comes your way on Thursday, September the 3rd. That kickoff is 7 o'clock. The television coverage is ESPNU. Of course, we have your radio coverage as your home of the Utes. Porter will get going at 3 o'clock on Thursday, 2 weeks from tomorrow. And then Bill, of course, will take over. Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes. So please give Porter and Tony Parks your attention over the next couple of days, and I will be back on Monday to host the show, and we will be high-speed ahead to game day for college football. We will say goodnight. A very special thank you to Sammy Mora, to Jason Shepard, Morgan Scally with Sean O'Connell, and then Jason Christ joined the program today as well. If you missed any of the sound, not just today, but any day, every day, if you're looking for Utah football sound, you can go to ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download the mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 full hours, check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. Also, while you're on your preferred podcast catcher, pull up Reality Check with Spence Checketts. 20 episodes in the books now with our friends at KUTV. This week's episode is Chris Kamrani, one of my favorite college football writers from The Athletic. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great Wednesday evening. You'll talk to Porter and Tony Parks tomorrow and Friday, and I'll be back on Monday. As always, you can catch all the action right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.